Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UBNradio.com.
Debi's Mind, Body, Soul, the home of invigorating talk on all things to do with health and well-being. And I am Lady Jones. I'm one of the co-hosts today, and I'm a certified transformational coach and a 3 principles teacher and practitioner. And I help my clients achieve a healthy psychological well-being so they can experience a more inspired, peaceful, and joy-filled life regardless of their external circumstances. And before I introduce my fabulous co-host, I'm going to remind everybody that we are a call-in show, and the number to call in is 323-284-7826. And we also have our Facebook page up, so if you have any questions or comments, you want to make a comment on the Facebook page, Del and Debi's Mind, Body, Soul, we are constantly looking at that throughout the show too. And so now to my fabulous co-host.
Thank you, Del. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. My name is Debi Carlin Boyle, and I am certified as a personal trainer, a fitness instructor, and an integrative nutrition, health, and wellness coach. And I work with people and my clients to find balance in their life with everything that feeds us, in addition to the food on our plates. And we have a great show for you today, talking about balance and talking about, well, a big subject today is burnout. And our guest today, Dr. Lynn Anderson, is a naturopathic doctor, yoga therapist, author, a mother and grandmother with over 25 years experience of teaching how to find balance and health in body, mind, and spirit. Natural health, or naturopathy, is the path of obtaining balance through diet, exercise, relaxation, positive attitudes, and appreciation for life. Naturopathy teaches us that we are 3 parts, body, mind, and spirit, and it's the balancing of all these 3 things that brings about perfect health. Today, we're going to focus on what just might be considered a national health crisis due to the stress that is piled on through mounting pressures, fierce competition to succeed, and looming deadlines, and a lot more than that. So we're going to tackle this little known pest known as burnt out. So to help us navigate this pest that affects every aspect of our life, it is our privilege to welcome to our show Dr. Lynn Anderson.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Hello, Dr.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're the perfect fit for us. I mean, we're Del and Debi's Mind, Body, Soul, and that's exactly what you deal with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
So we always like to start at the beginning, as always. We want to hear a little bit about your past and where you grew up and how maybe your upbringing may have impacted what you actually do today.
Okay.
So let's start at the beginning.
Well, if I go way, way back, I grew up on a little island off the coast of Maine in a little fishing village.
My goodness.
And that kind of has a little bit to do with my background because where I grew up, we didn't have doctors. We had local people who used local medicine.
Wow.
We ate organic before organic was even thought of because you foraged, you ate what was on the island because sometimes it was a long time before you got to town to get provisions.
Oh, this sounds
So
fabulous.
I grew up in a very, very rural place, and I guess that kind of also allows a child a lot of time for imagination and dreaming.
Yeah.
And I always dreamed of leaving the island. So I went from an island with, well, there's a lot of places in between, but here I am in Los Angeles,
Yes.
and that's about as far as you can get away from that island.
Yeah.
But
So you worked your way here.
I worked my way here. I found myself at the age of 25 as a single mother with 2 young children, and I decided to put myself through school. So I went back through school, and that kind of has to do with stress and burnout. Kind of got me on the path.
And where were you at this point? Where were you living? Were you still?
I was in Maine.
You were still in Maine.
Yep.
Okay.
And I went to the University of Maine, and I finished school there. And then consequently, I went on and on to continue school and schooling myself to end up with a PhD and my ND over the years. Took me many, many years of raising the kids and the house and working
juggling.
Between,
and going and
yeah.
everything. So, you
Yeah.
know, I'm really familiar with stress and burnout.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, when I was in my undergraduate work, I was working with the chairman of the department, and that's what we were working on was stress and stress management. And I think if you step back into like the late 70s and the early 80s, you probably remember the yuppie era.
Oh, yeah,
yes.
of course.
And
Yeah.
chronic fatigue
Yes.
syndrome,
Yeah.
you know, and nobody could figure out what it was. And it was as a result of burnout.
Right.
Wow, yeah.
Not stress. Stress was a factor.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads me into kind of one of the things is people don't always understand the difference between stress and burnout.
Yeah, it sounds like the same thing to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Exactly, and most
Yeah.
people think it is.
Yeah.
Well, with stress, the best way to understand it is with stress, you still think you've got hope. You still think you can get a lot of things
Oh,
done.
yes, yes,
So
exactly.
it's like this
yeah.
is so
You're just a balancing act.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're going like this. With burnout, the balls fall all over the floor, and you don't want to pick them up.
So it's almost like,
so
almost
that's
like a
when
depression.
it's almost giving up. It's
Yeah.
like you just say, "I just got to stop now," because you're between.
It's a
there's
bluntness.
physical and a mental shutdown. Is
Absolutely.
what I'm sure, and your body follows when the mental is already.
It's interesting you say depression because this morning, as I was coming in to teach my yoga class, there was a woman, and I stopped and I said, "You know, how are you doing today?" And she said, "Well, I'm fine today, but I'm dealing with a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress." And I said, "Yeah." I'm very motherly, so I took her my arm around. I said, "Well, what's going on?" And she said, "Well, my elderly parents, I'm dealing with them." And I went, "Oh, yes." I said, "You have children, you have grandchildren, you have a husband, you have your elderly parents. That's really, it's really
lot.
difficult to deal
to
with
navigate
all of that
everything.
stuff." And then I went into the class and I said, well, you know, I told them what I was doing today. And I said, well, why don't we talk about burnout? I said, anybody in here ever been burnt out? And everybody went, yes.
All the
yes,
hands
yes,
go
yeah,
up,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And someone asked me, is it depression? And I said, well, it's not that you're depressed and you're burnt out, or you're burnt out and you're depressed, but the two interlink.
Of
yes,
course.
exactly.
You know?
Yes.
Because when you're burnt out, it's like everything is dark
Yeah.
and
It's the life is
disappears.
being sucked out of you. It's-
Totally,
yeah.
totally.
And that's what is the precipice to make you want to give up and stop and go to the difference between stress and burnout, where you're still managing
Right.
life, and then the burnout is where you just kind of give up. It's too dark.
It's
just become
you
overwhelming.
can't see the light again.
Right, right. And I also call them, you know, and I talk about micro and macro burnout, and there is a big difference. A micro burnout is, you know, I've been going a zillion miles an hour and taking care of everybody and work and everything, and it's the end of the week and I'm burnt out. I need 2 or 3 days to kind of crash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a micro.
Yes, yes.
A macro is when you go into that dark place where you cut off your relationships. You don't want to go to work anymore. Nothing has any meaning or feeling anymore. And that place is a place you don't want to get to
No,
because it's a
absolutely.
long ways out of that hole.
Absolutely.
You know?
Catching yourself before
So-
you go down that rabbit hole.
That's
Because
right.
it's hard to dig out once you're in there.
Absolutely.
So you were studying this as you were. So you said, you know, you had some interest in this because you were going through it.
Yes,
you were
yes.
actually living it, and
yeah.
this was during the time that you were raising your girls and also in school. So
Yes.
it was just too much. You were and so this was, you were still in Maine during this time?
I was still in Maine and I was raising the children, and I'm what my husband calls a type A personality. I call
Yes.
myself a high octane soul. Yeah. And of course I had to get a 4.0.
Yeah.
Oh,
You
so
know?
you put a lot of pressure
So
on
I
yourself.
put all this pressure on myself to work, to raise the kids, to be home, to be a good mother, to get perfect grades, to do all of that. And, you know, after I graduated my undergraduate, I actually slept for most of the summer.
Wow.
I
Okay.
just kind
Because
of
your body just told you needed to shut down.
yeah, everything just shut down. And I just needed to regroup and figure out where I was going to go from here, you know, because now you're thinking work and, you know, I got a job and then I bought a house and, you know, I worked my way all the way up from the bottom. I mean, I literally, when I was alone with my 2 children at the beginning. I mean, I had no money, nothing. You know, you have
Right.
nothing.
I mean, I mean, just even hearing your story, I'm exhausted.
No, I mean, yeah.
Seriously,
just
I'm sitting here
if we
thinking,
can relate
how
to
did you
it.
do that? I mean, how did you do that?
When you're young, I think you
Yes.
just don't know anything different.
Exactly.
I mean, it didn't even occur to me that I couldn't do it.
Yeah, and it's survival as well, because my mother raised 7 children on her own, and I used to think, my God, how does she do that? Well,
Right.
survival. That she
Exactly.
had no other
You do what
choice.
you have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But your body, your body starts talking to you, and there are definitely hints of things that you're overdoing and shouldn't be doing. But you keep powering through it, and then, like you said, at some point, you're just gonna, everything's just gonna shut down.
Well, that's
You
what
can't.
got me into nutrition and naturopathy and aromatherapy and all, because naturopathy is the natural sciences. And what we believe is that prevention over cure.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you focus on prevention as opposed to waiting
Big
until
time.
Well,
they
exactly.
crash.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that's easier said than done. That's very difficult for a lot of people to say, okay, I'm going to eat right, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to do all the things and surround myself with the natural sciences, little sunshine, nice colors, nice music, the nice
Balance things in life.
so that I don't have to go down into that place.
Yeah.
Where most of my clients come from, they're there.
Yeah, I think
Yeah. I gotta
pull
because we
back.
take
Yeah.
things for granted. When things are going well, we don't really need to. So it's like the car. When it's running smoothly, we don't think it needs to be sort of overhauled or, the routine, checkup and things like that. And
That's
I think
right.
it's that sort of, that crash and burn is usually the alarm that
Absolutely.
people have to say, oh my God, what have I been doing wrong? I've got to look at
Right,
this.
right.
But they,
Yeah.
which is a shame, but.
Well, we have, if you stress, they talk about stress, they talk about, the adrenaline and the HCTH, which lifts the cortisol, and that's the stress hormone, because the saber-toothed tiger is
Yes,
coming at you,
exactly.
right?
Fight or
Right,
flight.
but that's
But the
short-term
saber-toothed tiger isn't running after us anymore. This is the thing to
Exactly.
remember. That guy got in the cave and speared the tiger off, and it took off. Today, it's what I call the techno tiger.
Yeah.
It's on our tail
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people are really getting burnt out today. It's
Yeah.
just
It's just a
constant
different day and age.
information and overload and things coming at you, and you have to change in a second.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you're not there.
Well, and I think also people they create that tiger by in their thoughts, because they're thinking about, oh my God, that happened in the past, that could happen in the future, and they're not in the present moment, so they're completely playing this out
Which
and
is
keeping this tiger alive.
That's right.
a big
That's
part
right.
of the 3 principles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but it is also a point of where you see what you're I just lost my train of thought, but you're in those moments, and one thing, it's sort of a snowball effect, and one thing sort of leads to another.
Right.
And you feel like, oh, I'm not going to succeed if I don't do this that goes with this, and then it's just this pile on top.
Right.
And adrenal fatigue has different ways of rearing its ugly head. And so, like what I try to do with clients is when they're sort of on the brink of where you can see things are starting, they're getting sick a lot, or they've got a chronic, something in their body is bothering them or paining them, then they're probably on the road. They're stressing about something and on the road to maybe a burnout. So if I can kind of nip it in the bud from there,
Right.
when you get the first hint, sometimes just being overweight is a hint, because you're eating poorly, the self-care is not happening. So those little tiny, if you can catch them early, there's where the prevention comes in. That's what I try to do.
Absolutely.
Before they get all the way, to the floor.
Right, because
So-
it's a long ways back up.
No,
Yes.
exactly.
I mean, when a
Big
person
time.
is at
Much more
that
difficult.
point, they have to stop what they're doing. They have to stop.
That's
They
right.
have to rest. They have to learn to eat properly. And sometimes that can really, if you're supporting a family, how do you stop? How do you stop and take care of
I know.
yourself?
Right.
That's really
Exactly.
Right.
difficult. It's really
You got to be
difficult.
mindful. You've got to readjust, and
Yeah.
and you have to do what I always call sort of crowding out the things that aren't working and slowly bringing in the things that will
Right.
give you good self-care, including with food. Because if you try to abruptly do something all at once, you're probably going to fail, number one. Number two, you're going to beat yourself up because it's probably not going to work as easily, and it's probably not actually realistic either. So you have to kind of do it slowly.
And that is part of burnout, is people feeling like a failure.
Yeah.
And you know, one other thing to really understand about burnout is it's not necessarily overload. It can be underload.
Yes, yes.
Sometimes people are in a work environment that doesn't challenge them.
That
That
doesn't
they feel
stimulate them.
Well,
doesn't
then they're-
stimulate. They feel like it's a poor fit.
Yeah.
And then guilt comes in. You know, well, what's wrong with me? Everybody else is happy here.
Yes.
They're in a poor fit.
And then they give up and they don't think they should move forward because
Right.
they think that they're gonna fail at whatever the next thing
Right.
is because this isn't working. Why would I think anything else would work?
So
And
then
they-
I start doing mindless tasks like surfing the internet, shopping, sitting and watching TV, and doing nothing. You know, not getting out. I cut off my relationships, you know, stop eating poorly, and just sort of, and that would be the depression that
Yeah.
a person goes
Okay.
into. And so now it's as a result of being understimulated,
Oh, and-
stimulated
yeah,
as
I
interesting.
opposed to over
I love that
stimulated.
because a lot
Yeah, you
of
don't
people
think about
wouldn't
that.
identify with that because they say, well, there isn't an awful lot going on in my life. So it's a
Exactly.
really, really good point. I love that.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
and it's important to kind of try to identify that,
Mm-hmm.
especially with coworkers, and if you are in the healing profession, you know, whether you're you could be a lawyer, a doctor, a therapist, a fitness instructor, whoever you are, to be aware of the people that are coming in around you. What's going on with these people? What's happening to them? How can you help boost them up a
Yeah.
little bit
Yeah.
and get them into that direction? Because I could tell you, when I teach my classes, I go in and, you know, I always remind everybody, I always look around and I say, you know, everybody in here walked in this door with something today. And everybody looks around because everybody thinks they're the only one.
That's
No,
right.
exactly.
Absolutely.
I'm the
It's a
only one
huge-
that's depressed. I'm the only one. Everybody else in the world is happy. But everybody
got their
carries
thing.
something.
Exactly.
And it's not just a thing. Sometimes it's several little things that, you know, that you have to deal with in life that sometimes bring us down mentally, physically, emotionally. There's so many things, and you always get in the room and you think, why do they look so happy, and why is everything going so good for them? And you
Yeah,
always,
yeah,
you know, always
yeah.
Well,
look
it's
on
that-
the outside.
I love
Well, we
that
put
word.
on great faces.
Yeah.
Well, exactly,
exactly.
and especially with Facebook. I mean, there's actually a condition now
Yes,
called
yes.
Facebook envy.
That's right.
Because people read in so much into these. I mean, we don't realize we can take 1,000 photographs and we get to choose the nice one out of it.
And then we
everybody
put
else
the
is like,
filter on it, and then
Yeah.
we do the,
people
all the
use that to
editing.
beat themselves up. And you
Yeah.
used a word, and I wanted to come back to this because you said something about techno. You used the word techno, and do you think a lot of our technology and things like Facebook and all of the stuff that we're bombarded with is contributing to the burnout or to the self-esteem, I think, of a lot of people?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, because it's with you all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's constantly at us, and I know myself, I can't keep up with it. You
No,
know,
Yeah.
I
can't
mean,
either.
It's
I
so
mean, you know, I
difficult.
miss that generation.
Yeah,
you know.
us too, or you know, speaking for me too, and it gets frustrating. And that frustration can turn to something, can manifest itself, you know,
Right.
to harm you actually.
Yeah.
Because because we can't keep up, and you know, my kids will take my phone from me. You saw me trying to do the
Yeah,
Insta
yeah.
story just now. My kids will go, "Oh my God, Mom," you know, and they'll do it really quick
Yeah.
in 2 seconds for me.
Right.
And to me, that's frustrating because I want to be good at that, and I could if I
Exactly.
apply myself in that respect. You know, I'm sure I could, but it's second nature to the generation below
Right.
us. You
Right.
know, and that's I can see where you can get caught up in. You know, we're nothing if we don't keep up in the technology. If we
Yeah.
don't keep up on what's going on, I mean, you've got to have this many followers on Instagram, or you're nothing.
Yeah,
You know?
and you also, it's like what's real and what isn't
No,
real
exactly.
anymore. You know,
Yeah.
we're losing
know.
that touch. We're losing
Yeah.
the touch with relationships. We're losing the putting everything aside and sitting down and sharing a dinner
Yes.
Yeah.
exactly.
conversation. You know, that's
Yeah.
changing with
Yeah,
kids. You know,
it
I mean,
is.
my grandsons, they're both 13. My two grandsons, they. I mean, they communicate with their friends using video games.
Oh, yes, absolutely. My sons, I
Play
have
against them.
21-year-old and a 25-year-old. And
Yeah.
exactly, my son would say, well, you know, I'd be like concerned about him isolating. And he'd be like, oh, no, I have all these friends. You know, and they're
That's
like people he's
different
never
way of
actually met,
communicating.
but they're friends because they play videos together.
Right.
And but thank God they get through that phase.
Yes.
Mine did.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. But going back to what's real and what's not real, and I think I'm going to be self-indulgent right now. I feel sorry for our generation a bit more, because it's not what we grew up with. It's not second nature to us. We're not as fast and
That's what I was
adept at
saying.
it. But we also have the pressure, I think, certainly if you're sort of an entrepreneur or you have your own business, all of a sudden it's like these online courses and if you're not this and you're not that, and it's
Yep,
like,
yep.
what
That's exactly
happened?
my point. That's what I was just saying.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
happened to that? Just that sort of doing business out of a little, an office or whatever. It goes home with you, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
You don't get to shut that door and be
No,
over.
no, you don't.
You don't.
You
So-
don't. It follows you
Exactly.
everywhere. And you have to be so careful what you put out there.
Oh, yes.
Because it can be misinterpreted, and that can come back to you. And people, I think technology, as great as technology is, everything in life, karma.
Yeah. There's
everything in
ups
life
and downs.
Exactly.
has
Yeah.
its
Well,
dark and
double-sided. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Two
Yeah.
sides of
Yeah.
the same
Of
coin.
course.
And it
Yes.
all depends upon how you use it,
Yeah, how
and
you navigate
how
it.
you approach it.
Yeah.
Right.
And
right.
even having that discipline to say, okay, I know that I can work on my computer in the evening, but having almost like a switch-off point, a self-imposed, like sort of the work day is over. I'm not going to be answering emails and working on content for the, for my online course or whatever till midnight.
Right.
Almost like giving yourself a boundary of time to work with, because otherwise it just bleeds into everything.
Oh yeah. And it affects your relationships.
Yes.
And relationships are the glue that keep us all connected here on
All
Earth.
part of that balance.
When
in
those
life.
start to fall apart, what is left?
No, exactly.
So-
Those are some of the most important things we need to
the
have
most
a
important
balanced, healthy life. Yeah,
Exactly.
Are the people, our family, our friends, everybody that we
Exactly.
come in contact with for our work. I mean, it's really important to longevity with quality, and
Yeah.
and people don't give it that, I think, enough
Yeah.
consideration in this technology age of time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about your yoga, because you have a it's your own type of yoga that you put together. So I want you to
do.
share
You
that.
call yourself a yoga therapist. I love
Yes.
that.
I am
love it.
a certified yoga therapist.
Okay.
Okay, there is
Yes.
a group, the International Association
Okay.
of Certified Yoga Therapists. So I am a certified yoga
And
therapist.
can we just is that yoga therapy meaning physical therapy or emotional and spiritual therapy too?
It's a relatively new field where yoga
Okay.
is going more into a therapeutic level. So there's two levels. You have yoga classes down here, and then the therapeutic, which is kind of moving into the hospitals and things. Beginning with what we can work on now, which is more like physical therapy,
Okay.
going in and working
Right.
with cancer patients and people like that, and getting them to move and to breathe. There is a psychological aspect, of course, to yoga, and there is a spiritual aspect to it. And as a naturopath, I believe that all three have to be integrated and balanced. You cannot treat the body without treating the mind and the soul. If you do, you've only done part of the job. And so oftentimes people will go to a doctor, and the doctor the medical doctor does the body, and then the psychologist does the mind, and then they go to a religious person,
Yeah.
and it doesn't integrate.
No, exactly.
Because it's so disjointed.
It's so
There's not
disjointed.
anything
Yeah.
that's the one thing that weaves them together.
Right, right. Now, if you're talking about the DVD that I did, I'm a cancer survivor, and about 9 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I had to undergo a radical hysterectomy. And it was like the first time in my life I'd been knocked down.
Yes.
I mean, go.
Yeah.
And so as part of my healing myself, I said to myself, there are two things I really want to do. I really want to do yoga, and I really want to dance. I really want to do those two things.
Yeah, you have it.
So I would sit on the edge of my bed, and I would try to do these little yoga poses, and then I would get up and I would try to do a little dance. And I kind of created this thing, which is called Dr. Lynn's Anti-Aging Yoga Dance.
Yeah, I saw that. I
And
have that.
so it's a combination of yoga and dance. And the idea is I approach it from an anti-aging point of view, so that I'm thinking about all of the things that we need to do in order to enhance the aging process. Because we're all going there.
And some of us are a little further along the road than others.
Yeah,
But it's a good thing because
Absolutely.
without aging you don't have any growth.
No,
I love
that's
getting
we
older.
don't have an alternative.
That's
we're not
right.
here if we're not aging. So how the quality of how we age is up to us.
Makes a big
Yes.
difference. And I'll tell you, I have women who come to this class, and they're all, I would say, 55 and above. I have a 90-year-old that comes to my class. She can't do everything.
Yeah,
but
of
she
course not.
loves it because it's designed for them.
Yes,
There's
exactly.
something everybody can do.
Yeah.
And I always bring a little lesson, a little reading. We talk about something that uplifts them.
Yeah.
So when they leave, they've got something here, they've got something here, and they've got something here.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
That's the
so
idea.
that's
Now-
bringing it all together.
Now, I know that
Love
you
the
have the
background.
DVD, but where do you actually teach the in-person workshop? I mean, the class.
the
so people
classes.
can-
Right now, those two classes are being taught at LA Fitness,
Okay,
one on the
wonderful.
west side and one in up in the valley.
Yeah.
I have taught private, and I've taught in country clubs. I've taught private places. I've taught in studios, and but right now, just 2 days a
two
week. I'm
locations in LA.
teaching those,
Well, we'll
yeah.
share all that information at the end, your
end, so-
websites and where people can
Okay.
actually
And we'll put it up
physically-
on the screen
Yeah,
and
'cause
stuff
that's-
so
'cause
everybody can.
the reason I asked is because it's doing those things that really, I mean, like for me, yoga is the most important thing. I mean, I live near the beach, so I love walking along the sand, working out on the sand. But I think yoga, as you get older, it just keeps all those things moving and supple rather, and oxygen getting in. That's why I always
So
tell
good.
myself.
I have my oldest daughter manages a yoga studio, and she's been a dancer most of her life since she was 2. She's in her 30s now, and she is all over me because I am, kind of a high intensity interval fitness instructor between spin classes and cardio kickbox and stuff like that, and I get those endorphins, and I really crave them. But as we age, we have to realize that the other things have to come into it. And even though I guide my clients through that, I am not I don't always walk the talk, So I've been taking more and more yoga, and I work at big clubs. I work at a box gym. I work at the Bay Club here in Southern California. 2 of them, and I have no excuse not to go to a yoga class. It's, I get to go for free, and I should be doing it. And I know from everybody, from Dell and all my friends and my daughters, both my daughters, that there's nothing more loving for the body in all aspects of it, both physical, mental, everything
and
that you were saying,
spiritual,
and spiritual.
Well, I'm a certified spin instructor.
Oh, you are too?
Yeah,
I
so-
didn't know that.
Yeah, so this is
Yeah,
my.
so you
so
know
I tell people this
balance.
is my yin and my yang.
Yeah,
exactly.
But I'll tell you, when in my spin class, I bring yoga in.
Oh, great.
So what we do is we
Yeah.
spin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the middle of my class, I have this thing which is called going to the zone. And I get everybody on the bike, and we go into a meditative thing. And they're supposed to just spin to the beat
I do
and
that.
that whole thing.
Yeah.
And then I usually drop something in, just a little something for them to think about. I tell them, okay, your mind's nice and clear. Here's something, drop in. Something to pep them up for the day. And I will tell you, and I've been doing this for a lot of years.
Me too.
The people that come to me and say, don't ever stop doing that zone.
Yes,
Don't
yes.
ever stop doing it. It's the only moments I get to stop in my day, clear my mind, and be present. And that's what we need to do to people. Bring them back to the moment.
Even the people.
Well,
I do
I'm so
actually.
glad you
I do
clarified
incorporate that into. I always have a thought for the day. Whether it's a gratitude or I read a little thing. I always do something at the top of my class because generally, as we know with our classes, we get the same. We kind of not groupies, but we get the same group of people coming. So I'm always reinventing and coming up.
Well,
with
I'd like to
things.
compliment you because you are a very good instructor then, because a lot of instructors just come in and, okay, let's
different.
do this.
Yeah, no.
Well, I'm glad you
and you're-
clarified
I'm older and
what time-
wiser.
You're a good instructor. You
Been
get
around
it.
a while.
Yeah, you get it.
When you first said yoga and spin, I was imagining like downward dogs and headstands, and I was thinking, how
On
do
the
you
bike.
do that?
Well, you know the spin studio on the west side, Yaz, was yoga and spinning. So they would do half hour, 25 minutes
Oh,
of
okay.
spin, and then they would go into the next room, and you had to be certified as both a spin dietitian and a yoga instructor
Right.
under their certification in order to go into the next room, and then
So
they would wind
anybody
down.
out there listening, no trying it at home.
Yeah.
No headstands on the bike.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it's two separate things.
Yeah.
But the mind,
they
integrate.
the mind, yes, they do. They integrate, and that's the point.
Same thing with my yoga dance class. You know,
Yes,
the
describe
dance
some of
thing.
that,
The
yeah.
dance thing is like 30 minutes. It's you're sweating. You're
Yes.
really sweating, but it all is incorporated into yoga. So it's all kind of the philosophy of yoga that we go through as they're dancing.
And what type of
Very
yoga and
cool.
what type of dance? So what
it's
would you say?
Dr. Lynn.
Doctor.
Dr. Lynn makeup.
I love that.
I made up the whole thing.
Yeah.
I made the whole dance routine. I created the whole thing
Okay,
myself.
I'm getting the DVD.
And
Yeah.
well, ladies, I brought you both a DVD. So I'll give you two gifts.
party
Oh my
gifts.
God,
Yay,
that's so
thank you.
sweet.
You know, the idea was it was something. You know, I was recovering from cancer, and I wanted to be able to go out. And I also wanted to be able to say to people, you know, I'm going to beat this, and I'm
Yes.
going to get up and keep going. You keep going too. You know,
that's wonderful.
And it's sold. I've sold it all over the country. It's been
Yes.
sold everywhere through a distributor, and I've just
Love
gotten
that.
wonderful feedback from
Yes.
people. You know, because it's when you're going through this kind of stuff, it's nice to have somebody that you can look to,
without a
who
doubt.
pull themselves up.
Who,
you
and who
know.
understands and has gone through the same thing. Because
Right.
when you
Yeah.
haven't gone through the same thing, you'll get a lot of people going, yes, but you don't understand. But when you have, you know, as you say, been through it yourself and are there then to inspire others, that's beautiful.
Well, that's
really is.
it's one of the scariest words.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely.
Is cancer. You have cancer. That's a scary word, and
Yeah.
it today, you know, it's so much better because of, you know, the medicine and how we treat it. But you know, it takes a toll on
does.
everything.
And
Absolutely.
it is. We're
And it
in
touches-
Cancer Awareness Month. Well, Breast Cancer
Yes.
Awareness Month
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Speaking
But it
of,
does
you know.
touch everybody. There's not. Well, I mean, I've lost a couple of family members in the last under the last year to cancer, and have other family members still dealing with it. But it touches every single person. There's not
Right.
one person you can't say that hasn't had a family member or a loved one go
Friend.
through this. It's
Yeah.
just it's really really difficult.
rampant.
Yeah, it is, and it does lead to burnout.
Yes.
And you,
100%.
so you said this was 9 years ago. So you were already into natural remedies and what? So how did you work? I'm just curious, getting off topic a tiny bit, but how did you navigate between the medical, the Western medicine, and your more preventative natural approach that you know?
Well, the first thing, and I do tell my students this all the time, that I was coming from a healthy place when I got sick.
Yeah.
I had a healthy diet. And whenever anything happens to you in life, if you're coming from a health point of view, you're going to come back a lot better.
Of
You're going
course,
to bounce back better.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so that's what prevention's about. Because I don't know if I'm going to get sick. I don't
Yeah.
know what's going to happen to me. But if I'm working in a preventative, then the cure is going to be so much easier. So to answer your question, I continued, of course, along my diet. I knew that exercise, meditation, those things were important. I am a master aromatherapist, so I would use different aromatherapy things, you know. Music, I'm, you know, in my study, naturopathy, we study color therapy and sound therapy. So you understand how to bring these things in. Light. You don't always think about it, but going out and sitting in the sunlight. Vitamin D. It's
So
the
important.
it's the best way to get
Yes,
vitamin
certainly.
D. It lifts you, and you're doing so much just by 10 or 15 minutes in the sunlight every day.
Right.
So it's those little things, incorporating those little things, help you to come back
Yeah.
faster. You know?
Yeah.
And it's mental. It's a lot of it is mental. It's how you think. You know,
Yes,
I mean,
100%.
Absolutely.
you can give up, or you can say, no, I'm going
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. We had a woman who's actually a good friend of mine on our show, who wrote a book called Healing in Harmony, and she actually wrote the book because her husband had throat cancer, and she stood by his side and realized that if she could just bring all the things that you just described into his life, that he could heal. And so she created this environment, she created routines and all kinds of stuff. She made sure the hospital scenes were very healing scenes. She made friends with all of the caretakers. It's so tried and true, this method.
Absolutely.
And how was it when the Western medicine part of it came in? I'm just curious whether you found it to be invasive or helpful.
Well, I happen to have some really good doctors who know me.
Okay, good.
And it would be, I'm one of those people that if I walk in and the doctor starts to prescribe medicine, I go, the doctor goes, you're not going to take this, are you? No,
Yeah, so that happens to me. So that's why I'm asking
not
you
gonna
this
take
question.
Now,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that you shouldn't.
Yeah.
There is a place for allopathic medicine, and there is a place for alternative medicine. The real key is to integrate the two.
Exactly. That's exactly.
And what happens is we don't integrate the two,
Yeah.
because if you take alternative medicine over here and you don't pay attention to the science, then you've got a problem, and vice versa.
Yes.
So they
With you on
need
that.
to be integrated together. Unfortunately, doctors don't know a lot about nutrition because
I know.
Exactly.
It's so
That's why the
shocking,
whole
isn't it?
health coaching
Yeah,
field
most-
is born.
Exactly.
To work with doctors,
Ex-
not instead of.
Exactly.
With.
But if you think about Hippocrates,
Yes.
the father of modern medicine, I
Exactly.
mean, that's what he was all about, was nutrition.
Yes, totally. What's that? What's that
Yeah,
wonderful
you
Feed
could
the
just
body.
go back to it.
Food is our medicine, and medicine is
It's
our
our
food.
food. Yeah,
Yeah.
use that in
Yeah,
my
yeah,
talks.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we've
Absolutely.
just gotten so far away from that because of
The industry because
Money.
of money.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
I know, it's
Yeah.
insane.
and I mean, I don't want to
Greed.
dump all over big pharma, but big pharma,
Yeah.
you know,
You've had more than a few
you
discussions
have to be
about that.
You
Yeah.
have to. I think you have to be an informed individual, and that's where the internet can be good and bad, because you can now go into your doctor and be a lot more informed than you used to be about what's going on.
Yes.
You also can get bad advice too.
No, exactly.
But you have to really know how to read, and like I tell my students, if you read a study, who funded the study?
Yes.
Go
Yeah,
to the
what's
back
the
door.
source?
Go to the back
Yeah.
door
Yes.
and find out who funded the study.
Exactly.
Then make your decision.
Yeah, I get so many of my clients coming to me. Did you hear about? You probably get that, and then they're questioning you. But they're saying, didn't you see on the news? They're saying,
Yeah.
and I'll say, take a step back.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. And there's a whole thing about coconut oil recently, and so you have to kind of talk them off the cliff and say, okay, let's find the balance in this, and let's be
Right.
reasonable about it.
Yeah.
But it happens now, all the time.
Yeah.
And I think it's also really important to check in inside with what's right for you. I mean, because I know there's been certain
gut.
naturopathic doctors when my niece was struggling with her cancer that were. She's either on board with us and nothing else, no Western medicine, and I just felt like that's too much. Both extremes,
Right.
and it can go the other way around too. A medical doctor could say, classic Western medicine would say, oh, don't do that. It's going
They're
to
quacks.
interfere with your treatment.
Right.
I just think there needs to be, you need to just really check it inside what feels right for you.
Fortunately for me, very early when I started my practice, I worked with a medical doctor, and he was very much on board and wanted to learn from me, and I wanted to learn from him, and we developed that
Wonderful.
balance,
Yes.
Really
because
smart.
it is. I mean, you can't take medicine and throw it out the window.
No, exactly.
No,
That's
I mean,
why I asked you about it, because I
Yeah.
think that being in the field that you're in, I was just curious how you approached the Western integration of that.
Right.
I was real when I gave birth to both my girls. I had 2 natural childbirths, but I went to hospitals that were very conventional hospitals, and so they had protocol, and they were trying to hook me up and do things. But my doctors luckily understood the place I was coming from, and together we worked together, so I could have the natural experience without anything, but still be in a place just in case, and have the medicines and have the doctors and things that I would need there if there was a problem.
Yeah.
But it can also go the other way, because I had the same thing. I think we both did that. What was it? That
Bradley method.
Bradley,
Yeah.
exactly. But sometimes it can get so sort of dogmatic.
Brainwashy.
Well, dogmatic that I was sort of, when I was struggling with my pregnancy and this baby was distressed, it was almost like, I felt I had, just because I had some gas and air at the very, very end, that I had failed. So I had a guilt.
yeah.
Guilt,
That
which-
can, which no,
is
that,
ridiculous.
That
It's
should be. My first baby, my son is,
yeah,
what is he, 45? He's 45.
It's amazing.
And he was,
Don't
and
look
it was
like you
very,
could
I mean,
have
I was
that.
in Maine and people
Yes.
weren't having natural childbirth, but I
Yeah.
happened to have a very progressive doctor. So I had him natural. And I'm one of those people that just can pop a baby out,
You're-
you know.
you're type A,
I got
come
the
on.
hips, they
I'm
pop
not
out,
one
you
of
know?
those people. They
So then
try to intervene.
so then I had my daughter, and my daughter 3 years later, and my daughter turned, and she was a bi-footed breech, and I delivered her.
Yes,
They didn't
wow.
section me. I delivered her, but I had to have an epidural.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
because
Yes.
you could. There was no way. I mean, you
Exactly.
cannot. So it depends. It's
Yeah.
not. If you don't have a natural childbirth, there's something wrong with
Yeah.
you.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
if you can do it, that's
Yes.
wonderful.
Exactly.
You know, but if the mother's distressed,
Well, exactly. Or the baby, because
give
mine,
her something.
Yeah.
'Cause
mine
the
were
baby-
breech and posterior
Really
too. So it was the same thing, stuck in the birth canal for like 5
Yeah,
hours.
yeah.
And there's a point at which you do have to say what's best for the baby and not
Right.
feel that you've, failed, that you
Right.
didn't do it naturally.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that can lead to burnout.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, yeah, it's
well, the
yeah.
stress over the
Well,
fact that
and
you
you
were
exactly,
not
and you
successful
have a
in
new
what you thought.
baby, and then you add, and you're dealing with all of that, and then you add on that some silly preconceived guilt that you didn't do it the right way.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
You talk about burnout in 3 segments. You gave us 3 different: the physical and the emotional, exhaustion, cynicism.
Cynicism.
You know me and my pronunciations, and detachment, ineffectiveness, and lack of accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
What? How does that manifest? What do you?
well, we talked a bit about the physical and emotional, and we talked about the lack of accomplishments and how they can both. So, what about the cynicism and detachment?
Well, detachment is one of the big things with burnout, because remember, with burnout, what happens is you start to detach from life.
Yeah.
You're moving from life. You depersonalize
Oh,
life.
that's really
Everything
like about
becomes
the end or-
depersonalized. Like, I'm sitting here and I'm void of you
Yeah.
and everything that's around me. I'm just
It's almost like there's a glass wall between you.
exactly.
Like you're watching a movie,
And then
you're
the
not.
world, you become very cynical of the world. You don't trust people. It becomes a very cynical, negative place
Yes.
that you can go into in that deep hole.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by all of that. And it's pulling yourself back out of that, because not everybody's bad out there. Not everything in
No,
the world is
exactly.
bad out
but you
there.
get so cynical
Sometimes
because
that
you don't
you
want
think-
to.
that you think it's all
You
that.
can sit up
Well,
on
it's-
here and look
Yeah.
out there and be critical of everybody else, but you never take those steps. And fear does that
Right,
to you. You know,
right,
to go
right.
step forward.
Well, it's
and then
self-awareness.
Yes.
And it's something that, we don't teach children that. We don't teach people that, to step back and be aware of your behavior and what you're doing and what you're putting out there.
Yeah.
Because, what you put out comes back to
I was
you.
just about to say this is leading into karma, because so let's talk about karma and that whole thing right there, what you were saying.
Well, I teach karma
Yes.
yoga, and karma is simply that we're here, according to karma, we are here to do work. That's it.
Yeah.
You're here to work.
Yeah.
Now, most people go, oh, well, okay, what am I doing for my occupation? It has
Yeah,
nothing to do with
exactly.
that. Nothing to do with that at all.
The life is a classroom work.
We're here to work on ourselves. And that's a very hard concept for most people, because we're so busy pointing the finger at other people and pushing and other people's
Blaming
buttons and blaming.
So what do they say? I love the saying. It's always just easier to see the picture when you're not in the frame.
Exactly.
Good
But
one.
it's like, today I was talking about power with my students, and how it is so much, you have so much more power when you practice patience than when you're frustrated, you get angry.
Yeah, exactly.
Because once you get angry, you've given away your power.
Totally.
That's
You're,
right.
you're reactive,
and then you're
not
very
responding.
reactive. Yes. You're
And who are you?
very impulsive.
You're an angry
And
person.
then you get mad at yourself later for it.
Yeah.
It's-
So the anger comes back to you. And it's that moment. And that's the good thing about yoga. If you can step back, and it's very difficult to do, and this is the work. If you step back and you take a breath and say, okay, my husband just really got on my nerves. Now I could jump all over him.
Yeah.
Or I can realize that's just who he is, the way he said it. Let it go.
Exactly.
What does it matter in the big scheme of things?
And
Yeah,
it's only
that's
your perception anyway most of the time.
Most of the time.
We are unaware of the sort of lens that we're looking at life through, or the glasses we're looking at life through, and we're sort of pointing and you need to change so I can feel better,
Right.
not realizing that we have the power inside ourselves to feel better. They don't have to behave any differently.
Exactly. And you can't make somebody change
Exactly.
anyway.
No.
You know, they're going to be who they are.
Right.
Yeah.
But if it's a continuous thing that is detrimental to you, then you know you have to make a change from the person who's actually sort of toxic to you. into your
Exactly.
life.
And
Yes.
that's a really good point too, and that has to do with burnout as well. You can get burnt out by being around toxic people. They will beat you down.
to know when to
And-
walk away.
But it's very hard to step back and say, okay, I'm not going to be friends with that person anymore, or I'm going to get a divorce, or whatever it is you have to do. It takes a lot to move away.
No, it does.
Because
yes.
what do? We internalize it, we play it in our own head. It must be my fault.
That's right.
It must be my
Absolutely.
fault.
Or we scare ourselves into staying in situations because we don't believe it could be any better. I mean, change
right.
is actually one of the hardest things for people to do. They'd rather
Going back
stay
to
with
fear.
the monster they know rather than the monster they may not know or ever meet.
That's right.
Because
It
the
really is.
unknown, we're afraid of the unknown. Maybe there isn't something better.
Right.
I can't do this by myself. There's
Yeah.
so many situations that they
Well,
put
you know,
us into.
I like to tell a lot of my female students, you know, I have a lot of single women that are divorced. You know, it took me 25 years to find my husband.
Oh, wow.
And we've been married 15 years now. And it's okay, but you know, it happened.
Yes.
It happens.
Yes,
You know?
absolutely.
Just enjoy your life.
Totally.
Yeah. There's a
Totally.
part of me. I was with my ex-husband for 35 years, married for 26 of those 35. And there's a part of me in this last 7 years of being single that says life isn't full unless you have somebody else in your life. But I've actually been living the most amazing life in the last 7 years that I never dreamed of, never
Right.
was in my big picture, you know.
Right,
Yes.
right.
But there's a part of me that looks around at my friends that are going into their 35th and 40th year of marriage, and you know, there's all this stuff I'm seeing and going, oh, I failed, you know.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so
yeah.
I have to keep a check on myself
Yes.
to say it's okay. I'm living a life
Well,
right now.
you know, that
Yes.
brings us all the way back to what I started with, poor fit sometimes. Sometimes it's not the right fit.
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
not a failure.
No, exactly.
It's not the right fit.
taken me
and
a
when
long
you
time to know that.
step away from
Yeah.
that, it's like, then you start to grow.
Yeah,
And I also
exactly.
think
And you open
lifetimes
up.
within lifetimes. I mean, you know, sometimes a relationship just has a lifetime, and it was maybe good for what it was for
Right.
however long it was.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
over. And
Yeah.
well, I just think especially if there are children involved, they're never really over. It just changes. It just changes into a different relationship.
That's right.
But just means there's room for another one, and
That's
lots
right.
of them. As many
Exactly.
as you want.
Open the door. You
Or
know,
a lot of them.
in Karma, we have time days.
serial
I have no
monogamist.
comment about a lot. It's just been a fun 7 years. So natural ways. We've been talking about it all along, but natural ways to recover. Somebody's
Well, yoga for sure.
Yes,
and the
yoga.
dance.
And diet.
dance,
Diet.
diet, the right exercise, so dance and yoga. What other ways do you work with your
Rest and relaxation.
sleep? So important.
Sleep,
Our body
yes.
restores itself at night, and
The-
we
yeah.
It's the
way
only way.
understand. You know, our cortisol levels change drastically when we don't sleep, which aids in burnout.
Right.
big
And it's
time.
very hard for people to rest and relax, you know, especially if you've been going,
Yes.
to just let go
Yeah.
and rest and relax.
I think also when we're younger, sleeping, for me anyway, sleeping was like a bit of a waste of time. I'd get them, you know. Whereas now my Fitbit, besides how many steps I've done, the most important next thing is how long I've slept. I mean,
Exactly.
I check my sleep every night.
That's so good.
I put myself to bed whether I'm tired or not because I know I need to get a certain amount of sleep
Right,
to be
right.
at my optimum.
It's true.
So anyway, we are getting
I know.
close.
So we have to get all of your
Yes,
ways people
contact
can contact
information.
you and anything you may have coming up that
Yes.
anybody can get involved with.
Well, I do. I have a project coming up, but I can't talk about it.
Okay. All
So
right.
stay in touch.
I was just gonna
I
say,
will come back later.
We will have you back
Yes,
on for that
yes,
one.
when
But
that all
Yes,
comes.
I have it's a new book, and I have there's a narrative CD that goes with it.
Oh,
so there's a whole new
fabulous.
project that I've been working on. I've been
Yeah.
working on this project For about 15 years,
Wow.
but I mean more specifically for the last 2 years,
Yes.
pulling that together.
Well, we'll definitely have
very
you on
cool.
to talk about that.
Okay.
But what did you have a book there?
Well, this is the
Burnout
Burnout and the
book,
Burnout
yes.
book, and
Happens to all of us.
yeah, and it's really really was written as an educational book for fitness and health professionals who need continuing education credits. That's what this was written for. But it's kind of a good little book. It gives you kind of a thumb through, and you can kind of pick up little points and
Sure.
things.
And people can get it on your website.
yes,
Yep, they can.
fabulous.
Tell them
Yep.
your
And
website.
yes.
And the website it's drlynn.com. So it's spelled out DOCTORLYNN.com. drlynn.com.
And you have other things, other products, other things
I
that
do.
you can
The
get
DVD is on there. There are some other books on there, so they can go there and it's a
Wonderful.
whole.
And they can come and see you live in LA.
Yeah.
they can do that if they want.
And the locations are on your website too?
It
or-
is.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yep,
Okay,
yep,
wonderful.
And I'm on Facebook and stuff, so
Yeah. Wonderful.
People can contact you. There's all
Absolutely.
different ways.
So
that people
we're going to
can
do a
contact you.
final words of wisdom.
Yes.
What would you say to our audience? Give them a little
Final
nugget.
thoughts.
Final thoughts.
to leave them with.
Well, I would say right back to where we started.
Yeah.
Burnout. It happens to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Remove the guilt, remove all of that stuff, and by all means, focus on prevention over
Yes.
cure.
Yes.
Just get
All the
out there and
things we
take
talked
care
about.
of yourself because, as I tell my students, you are the most important person in the world. You are a unique, wonderful individual. So be proud of who you are and take care of yourself.
Yes.
Because then you have the energy to
Yes.
take care of other people.
That's
Exactly.
right.
Put good
And
stuff
then
out
that's
there.
all, then you're giving yourself
Absolutely.
Yep.
quality of life and longevity.
That's
So
right.
That's
That's
what's
right.
important.
And as you say, mind, body, spirit, just take care of all of it.
Right.
And then,
Yep,
don't
yep.
just go one direction and
No.
neglect the others.
You
So,
are a tripart being.
Yes.
Body, mind, soul.
yes.
Love it.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for
You've
bringing
been
your
such a
wisdom and your
pleasure.
who you are onto our show today. We really
yeah.
appreciate your time
Thank
you.
and everything that you
Wonderful.
gave to
Thank
us.
you. It's been fun.
We will definitely have you back.
All right.
Well,
lovely.
and thank you everybody for
Yes,
joining
thank
us
you.
today.
See
We're
you
back
next
here
week.
next week, 1 p.m. Join us down Debi, Mind, Body, Soul. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.